How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. You?
I'm fine, thank you. Uh,
Good.
did you have, I see you have these wonderful recipes that you put on Facebook.
Yeah,
Do you, do you enjoy cooking?
very much. Yeah, very much. So my family is Italian, and
Yeah.
so eating is a very big part of our culture and
Ah, I
in pretty
see.
much everything we do. And so since the beginning of the pandemic, well, I've always cooked. I've always loved
Yeah.
cooking, but since the beginning of Corona, when we had the first lockdown here in
Mm.
Austria, I started cooking pasta by hand, which was something I always wanted to do, but never had the time to do. And so I could recall, the elder members of my family making pasta by hand, but it was just something that they did, and it wasn't for us. When we
Oh
cooked, we
yeah.
had pasta out of a box.
Oh
But
yeah.
having extra time, I started doing that, and then next thing you know, a year later, every Sunday, that's become my tradition.
Really?
Since musizieren isn't really possible on Sundays due to the quiet rules. So on Sundays, I take a break and I dedicate myself to the cooking, and it's just such a
That's
thrill. It's rewarding
wonderful.
to do, and then rewarding to eat. So it's
Oh yeah, yeah. But is it from your if you say that your family, is it your mum? Is she a great cook, or where did you get the idea from making the pasta yourself?
My mom is a great cook. She's not Italian though. So my father's side of the family is Italian.
Oh,
His parents came from Italy, and they taught my mother how to cook Italian so that my father could eat well. So
oh,
my mother
okay.
is a great cook, although no Italian blood, but she makes the recipes very authentic. So I was very blessed to grow up eating well at home. And then I lived in Italy, in Torino, for about 2 years. And since I was a baby, always coming back and forth between Italy and America. So, Italian food was part of my palate, part of my cultural identity, and something that I'm always eager and happy to take part in.
Yeah, I think it's a magical thing to take flour and water and create something. Even if it's pasta and okay, probably an egg added, but this idea of taking these basic things and then creating food, I think it's wonderful.
It's real. It's like alchemy. It's magic
Yeah,
and
yeah.
alchemy. And for me, as a composer, it reminds me a lot of composing. It's all about basic materials, that is notes, if we want to say
Mhm.
harmony, sound itself, mixing them together, balancing them, constructing form, structure, architecture that's pleasing but has its own depth and integrity. I find them so closely related, and composers like Rossini were great cooks. I think Rossini actually wrote a cookbook too. So there's like a long tradition of composers who love to eat and love to cook, and there's this type of connection between
Mm.
the art of cooking and the art of composing, or music rather.
Well, I find it very fascinating what artists do or what they did in this time. Cooking seems to be and baking seems to be one of the things that they really enjoy doing, and I think it's part of this creative idea of creating, and making food look beautiful or thinking about that. So I think it's a creative way, of expressing yourself.
Absolutely. Creating something where there was nothing, where there was an
Yeah.
empty plate, now
Mm,
there's food on it. Where there was a silent room, now there's sound in it. Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
there's a technique, and it's a fragile art too, because very easily, just like if I don't know, do something wrong with my fingers, I hit a wrong note. If I don't
Yeah.
pay attention and put too much salt in, then I've ruined everything. So there's a risk element too,
Exactly.
which is very
Yeah.
thrilling. And
Yeah.
of course, the best part is listening to the piece once it's done and
Yeah.
eating the food once,
Exactly.
that thing that
Yeah.
you created yourself tastes that much
Yeah.
better. Uh,
Um, but um, but tell me, where were you in during the lockdown, the first lockdown in 2020?
The first, so it's funny because I lose track of which wave we're in, because it seems like every time things get back to normal a little bit, then all of a sudden we're
Then there's
closed
a
down.
wave. Yeah.
So I live in Graz. I teach
Mhm.
at the Kunstuniversität, here. And the first lockdown, I was here in Graz. I believe, actually, yeah, it was on a Wednesday that the notice came from Sebastian Kurz that everything was going to be shut down. The semester had just begun. Monday and Tuesday were very normal days and unlike any other. And then Wednesday, around I think it was 1 or 2 o'clock after lunch, the notice came that the government was going to be shutting everything down. And my colleagues came in and they said, "Did you read the news?" And for me, my German's very functional, but to read a news article takes a little bit more effort than just opening it and that. And well, yeah, I eventually did see the news and then read the even longer emails from the rector and then started to say, oh, something is up here. And then the next thing you know, we were stuck here at home teaching the rest of the semester online. I work with opera singers, and so I'm teaching opera singers through a computer screen. Next thing you know, for the next 3 months, which was, I guess, better than nothing, but very, very different than we're used to.
I always wonder if it was just me, but this whole thing, when I heard it, it sounded, it cannot be true, and when I heard the Staatsoper was closing, I think in Vienna, if you hear that, then something hits home. It's like, really, this is this serious that the Staatsoper is closed? So so how did and it also fascinates me because I've photographed many students in this project. And I probably, there are some that I think come or study in Graz that was here. But I feel for the students very much. I feel for the young people who are on this threshold now of entering, a career, or even the ones that start their training now or start their studying. And not, they're all, but I wonder, how did they receive and react to the news?
Yeah, it was especially difficult for the graduating students or the seniors or the students that were right at the end of their studies, because at that point begins the most difficult, challenging part of their careers, which is establishing yourself, is singing the first of 100 professional auditions, which go badly until you finally get the good one. And so for them, 4 years, if not 6 years, or wherever they were in their studies, of planning and working for something, all of a sudden stopping, was particularly challenging for them. There were everybody was afraid of how long is this going to last? Should I be looking for a new career? Because the arts were hit particularly, especially in theater, they were hit particularly hard. Because, live theater, singing together, aerosols, 12, 20, 40, if you have an opera chorus, people on stage, singing, all of that just came to a halt with no clear idea of when that was going to happen again. So students were very scared, and then the longer it went on, they got a little discouraged. And then the scariest part for me as a teacher, is everybody got used to it. That became the new normal. And where we had to have our coachings online, where I would record the arias for the students, the accompaniment, so that they could play it in the background, and they would sing from home to me. And we were getting things done, it was working, but then all of a sudden for some of the students, you hear bum, 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 bum. The Nachbarn, the neighbor saying, you can't sing, I don't want to hear. So then they're like, well, I can't go to school, I can't sing here, what am I supposed to do? So it was different for all of them. I have about 20 students that I work with regularly, and some of them were no problem, and some of them said, I have no place to go. And so that it was inconsistent for all the different students, how they reacted. But it was a whole range of fear, discouragement, and then getting used to it and saying, this is how we do it. And now, a week ago, the Mozarteum in Salzburg, the MUC, and the Graz Kunstuniversität, they shut down the opera department again because corona clusters were starting in the opera department. So whereas the rest of the university is working, we got shut down again. And so today, now we're on spring break, but last week was particularly difficult because one of the students said to me, Raphael, we've made so many sacrifices. We don't party. We don't go out unless we need to. And nach einem Jahr, 1 year later, we're in the same exact position in front of a TV screen or a computer screen as we were. So yeah, it's just really difficult. And especially not knowing when is this going to stop?
Yeah. Well, what I find it so so sad, really, that you actually mentioned now the neighbors, knocking on the wall or making comments when they sing. Now, I what I did was, especially yeah, the young ones, the young musicians. I always asked if they would sing through the window or play through the window, and I did it just, just for a bit of fun, or of no, it's just something. And they were really, most of them were willing to do it, but many of them, the answer was, I would love to, but my neighbors will complain. And I even had a situation where a young singer sang beautifully through the window, and the neighbors screamed at her, and that totally put her off. It put her so off that she even didn't want me to post the part that was perfect, that was so beautiful, and I thought to myself, in this time, a city like Vienna, for example, which is the cultural hub of Austria, and I think, I don't know exactly, but it could be of Europe also, although there are many other cities, but many students come here from all over. I mean, you must experience that yourself. The opera singers, or the young opera singers, they come from all over, and then and that I felt really, really sad, that even the neighbors cannot appreciate this little bit of, or this 2 minutes, or like you say, this hour or 2 hours that they practice. um, be a little bit more considerate about that. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's such a huge personal rejection.
exactly.
That's scarring in a place that's your comfort zone. If your home is not your comfort zone, then I don't know what can be your
Mm.
comfort zone. And in the place that's almost sacred because of that's your space to occupy. Somebody rejecting what you dedicate your life to. If you don't get a call back in an audition, okay, competition, Konkurrenz,
Yeah,
there's how
yeah.
many singers that are there. Okay, you can't really take it personally, but the second somebody shuts you down, that's right next to, they'll never feel comfortable singing at home the same way before. There was a video that went around, I don't know during which wave, filmed in Wien with an old, there was somebody, a young tenor singing Nessun Dorma, and he wasn't Pavarotti, but he was singing a very heartfelt rendition. And in the background, you hear this older Austrian lady, older Viennese lady, in Viennese kind of dialect, saying "Ruhe, Ruhe, so schön
Yeah.
ist es nicht." And then, which at first we're like, oh, that's really funny, that's really funny. And then you stop and think, that poor guy is pouring his heart and soul out for no money, for no compensation, just to give back to
Mm.
people. And what's the response of the people that he's putting himself on the line to help, to give something to, is that rejection.
Mm.
And especially at a young age, at this in the 20s, when they're just about to move out of the nest, when they're just about to start, that type of personal direct rejection has much further consequences than that one Austrian lady or than the neighbor will ever imagine. For them, maybe they're just trying to take a Mittagsschlaf. Maybe they just want to watch their TV. But that bum, 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 oof.
But for me, from an outsider, because I don't know the music industry, and I'm not so clued up with everything in Vienna, around that. But I was thinking this way, that, um, well, by talking to artists, by photographing them, the one thing that I sensed was that it's very important for them to feel noticed, or to feel valued, or to feel that, that what they are doing is supported and is acknowledged, and I don't think, but just the fact that so many said to me, oh no, I can't because the neighbors will complain. It's so many that it's not as if I say that was the minority. I would say the majority was the ones that was scared, this, oh, no, 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 I can't, that way. um, and I think if you think it is statistics about Vienna, and you think it's one of the cities with the best quality of life in the world, for how many years now have they Vienna has Vienna come up as the city with the best quality of living? And I wondered that this best quality of living, where does it come from? It comes from the fact that we have so much art here, and so many artists from all over, and we've got all these wonderful theaters, we've got all the wonderful music halls, and the very much artistic vibe in Vienna. So it has to be because of that this woman who shouted it's not so beautiful has this wonderful quality of life because of all these artists that come here and bring this atmosphere to Vienna. Because also when I speak to people over the world about in these interviews, it will always be, oh, do you know what, I love Vienna, it's such a beautiful city, I would love to come again. So this is something that there's something in Vienna that artists really, that attract artists. And this is what makes me so sad, is that the people of the city don't acknowledge that we are living in this wonderful city because of the arts and because of the artists who are here.
Absolutely, yeah. I wish we could have had this elderly lady here for this conversation to hear that, because it's absolutely true what you say. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I'm not, the times that, the few times where something like that happened, I just didn't feel to confront people in that way, because also those people, when you confront them, it's a waste of time, really,
yes,
but
it doesn't change anything. No.
I think this is my next question to you now. What do you think? And also because you work now with these artists, and you say the same thing, where they said, we're here, it's been a year now, we're still in the same position. um, what could be the reason that artists don't feel valued, or that these young singers have this feeling that they're not valued, or that they're not supported? What do you think is the problem there?
Well, with the students, not they don't really know how the opera world works, because they haven't gotten that far. Until this point has all been developing their craft, learning about music, learning the basics so that they can discover their artistry, moving on for the next 30 years of their careers. And they're not used to working with people under any circumstances, let alone under these compromised circumstances of doing lessons on Zoom, doing auditions by video. And then just as they start to think they're figuring this out, all of a sudden their world is turned upside down, but not just theirs, everybody's. So when they come to me for guidance, Raphael, what am I supposed to do? I'm also confronted by this idea of, I don't know. If we're going to be in a perpetual state of lockdown, lock on, lockdown, lock up over the next 10 years, I would say maybe we should start looking at either plan B, or how can we use this lockdown as a way to create art for this? Is this temporary or is this permanent? And that not knowing not understanding the pandemic itself makes it difficult to not understand how to go about doing our art with it. Because one thing that I think for all artists, it's important, to be appreciated, to be relevant more than anything, to know that what we spend 1000% of our life doing has some type of worth, value, contribution to society. because it's not just for our egos. It's not, we're doing this for other people. And when we give that gift and it's shut down, then that's hurtful. And then that makes us think about every time we want to give this gift moving forward. Now in the middle of this pandemic, the question is, how do we give this gift? How do we share with people? Should we all be learning computers and microphones and stuff so that we can do live streaming from our living room, because that's the only way people are going to use this art, which would mean sacrificing the time that we spend physically practicing, because we're already doing 100% of our time is practicing. Then you have marketing, social media, all of these things that 60 years ago with the great opera singers of it didn't have to manage their Facebook account or their YouTube channel. They had people that did that for them. So I think to sum that up, it's just it's difficult not knowing how do we treat this, how long term is this or temporary, and how do we go about practicing our art? Is it just waiting until this passes, or is this going to be a new long-term reality? Until we're all vaccinated, until theaters are opening up, all of them, it's very difficult to say. In America right now, most of my family and friends are vaccinated. Here, I've had corona. I'm the last person that will be vaccinated. The students are all healthy. There's so many question marks. What do we do with them? You know?
But yeah, it's very interesting also that you mentioned this about the giving part. This is also what I sensed in the time is, yes, we talked, with the ones that, and not even just the students, but the students are maybe not as, because they have maybe funding or so, but many artists, of course, freelance artists had this problem about the funding or the finances. Yet the conversations would be about the finances and so on, but it would always turn to, but that's not really the issue. The issue is that they want to perform, they want to be there, they don't want to sit at home and receive money. They want to because you can eat and you can live, but they want to really do it. And that's almost the thing where that I realized also that it really has nothing to do with ego, that it has to do with this fact that it's very much a giving idea. It's this, I do all this, but I like to share that and I like to give that. But somehow I wonder if the majority of people don't understand this, So I had this insight because I spoke to them and I heard and I saw and I got this idea, from meeting 400 plus artists. But this should be something that we should really talk about, and that people should understand. And this is what art is about, that it's not entertainment, it's not just there on the side. It's really something that somebody has almost aside from the gift, it's almost this calling to do it, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, if you want entertainment, there's a television full of trash, of mindless, blank, empty entertainment. You can watch, everybody's got their Netflix shows. There's no shortage of entertainment, which are just distractions. Things that we can just forget for a moment, that so many people are dying, that so many people are not in work, that so many people suffer to just bring food on the table or figure out, what am I going to do with my life now? As if it weren't hard enough already to live a life. Now we have these unknowns in it. And yeah, it's more than entertainment. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And in difficult times is when we need art more than ever.
Exactly. Yeah.
And sure, yeah, YouTube is there so we can see all the art that people enjoyed in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. But what about the voices of today? Operatic, instrumental composer, photographer, whatever. The artists today, what are they creating and how do they get it to people?
Yeah.
That's really tough, because we already spent so much time in front of our screens just to to write our papers, to me composing, the computer is an instrument for me, doing lessons online, and now to consume art, we're also going to be in front of the screen while the world goes outside. It goes on outside. It's very difficult. Sorry, I didn't want to
Yeah,
interrupt.
no, no, no. No, this is the what I found also interesting is if you think if overall you look at what people did during the times of lockdown, if we look at the first lockdown, and not just artists, but most people started to do something creative or reverted to art, even if it's watching television or watching a film. That's also a part a sort of art. Some people started photography. Some, I know they were here in Stadtpark. They were children sit and they knitted. The young children. That was actually so beautiful to see that children started to knit. But I was also thinking about that. Isn't it interesting that the moment we are in such a crisis, or that something is taken away, now there's no shopping and you cannot go to restaurants. Now suddenly people start to be more creative, and they start to do things, and they start to revert back to art. They rely on the radio, they rely on the music that they hear. So shouldn't this be telling us that, look, in the worst crisis in the world, what was the first thing that people grabbed hold of? And that was art, that was music, that was the television, that was so so it should give an idea how important art is for us, for our well-being, for how we cope with things. And I'm sure we can really delve into history and look, and even in wars where soldiers sang, or where people did things or reverted to music or something to just cope with
Yeah.
their situation. So I think, yeah,
I hope that people that these interviews, that everything that you do can be a loudspeaker to share this idea, because everybody, if you go on Facebook, you see all the different arts and crafts, from making sourdough bread to
yeah,
knitting to people learning instruments, to learning all languages, is doing things that they never had the time to do. And seeing, so it's obvious, so obvious that we don't see the importance of arts, because we say, oh yeah, I learned how to do this. Well, everybody learned how to do something. Don't we see how important art is this light bulb moment which says, oh wow, no, you're right, we need more art in our everyday life. I
mm,
wish the politicians would be made aware of that. If they knew more the
yeah,
value of arts, then they'd be more
exactly,
inclined to put money into it.
yeah. Well, this is why I do these interviews, because I think, this is a way for artists to speak, and the things that you told me, and that we hear from the ballet dancers, from, like you say now, from the students, from, this. There are many students on my project, and specifically because for me, they are the musicians of the future. They're very valuable for me in this project, as everybody is. But specifically, uh, they are the ones now having to deal with the consequences of this pandemic, and of course all artists will, but they are the ones, the young ones who have to now make difficult choices to what's going to happen further. And I've spoken to a musician in Canada, and he said that actually some of his students have given up. They can't see the future for themselves, and this really sad. Yeah,
Yeah, I have also personal friends of mine who have sought alternative career paths, who are going to school online to study things other than music, other than what they've done their degrees in. And I've seen all sorts of responses, from very positive and supportive to people being very accusative and saying, "No, you're a coward. You're giving up on it."
mm,
And one of my friends' response I thought was very beautiful, saying, "I want to help people. I
mm,
want to give something to people, and right now I can't do that with my art. So I can either not give people anything, or I can develop myself more and find a new opportunity, to a new way, or a new,
Yeah.
vehicle to give people something, to help, to make this world a better place. And it's unfortunate that they're put into that position, but I find it quite beautiful, inspiring that somebody is willing to change their life direction, to take on something completely new, because they say, I'm not getting enough chances to help people right now. I think
Mm.
that's beautiful. And those are the type of people we need as artists in the first place.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
But
but
they're the
yeah,
problem solvers, yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah. But this is now my well, this is my, what I must say I've found so fascinating is that the artists all have these specific skills, you know, like self-motivation, and everywhere I went, it was almost as if they do things to solve a problem, or to try and make it work, or so. And I see also many ensembles that was formed in this time, you know, and young students getting together. And but my real wish is um, that we change the education system, and we make art a very important part of the education system, and not just maths and science, but that art, you know, that we have the four parts, and that's languages, math, science, and art, but they are on equal level, and that children all have to study art, not as a side subject, but as the different disciplines of art. You know, that they don't all have to become musicians or dancers, but that we at least give them some knowledge or some insight or some way of expressing themselves through art. Because now, with all the scientific um, uh, evidence that we have, how music shapes the brain, how dancing changes the brain, and you know, how music affects the cells of the body, that we think, well, isn't that then so important that we at least give children the opportunity to learn to appreciate music? Because it's not just this science experiment that's been done in Germany showed that it was not just the musicians who played the instruments, but it was also the audience who listened, who had the same experience in the brain. So, what do you think of this idea?
Abs- Absolutely. I think I've read studies before about how music, regardless if you're playing Chopin etudes or if you're just playing Twinkle Twinkle on the violin or just plunk it, the act of studying music connects the right and the left hemispheres of the brain in a way that allows you to critically think, in a way
Mm,
that allows you to put all of the maths and literature, these things that are taught separately, to combine them, dealing
exactly.
with an invisible, magical world of fantasy and creativity. Uh, Not to mention exactly ballet, any type of art, it links the left and the right brains. These things that are always taught separately, and makes you, simply put, makes you a better, more complete person. And you don't have to be any good at it, is the thing too. People say, "Oh, it's too late to start playing piano." No, start. It's too late. It wasn't too late for me to start making noodles. It's not
Yeah,
too
exactly.
late for somebody to make, do it, and the act will enrich your life. And if we can start enriching lives from childhood on, even better. But that's dangerous for
Mm.
politicians. That's dangerous for government. If you have, now I don't want to sound conspiracy
Yeah,
theory or
I heard
paranoid,
this. I heard this
but
before, that somebody said that. Yeah, now I know what you mean. Yeah,
people,
yeah.
yeah,
I think,
a
yeah,
population that, exactly, that's capable of critical thinking and feeling, and that's smarter than the politician. They're hard to control. They're harder to keep under lockdown. They're harder to, and so I can see why. I can see it for two reasons: the confusion of art and entertainment, saying that it's superfluous, we don't need it, we don't need that in our schools,
mm,
and we don't want people to be too smart because then it becomes difficult to control and govern them, are the two reasons why I think that art is a little bit pushed to the side. And in America, it's significantly worse than here. I can tell you that.
Well, there's this marketer and writer, Seth Godin. I don't know if you know about him, but it's very
No, Seth
interesting
Godin.
what he writes about artists. Well, artists, as he sees everybody as an artist, but that he says that the schools are based on the system in the industrial era, because they wanted people to abide by the rules and be not free thinkers and just work. They basically trained for working in factories. So the system works like that. And so and also, like in the industrial era, they needed the sciences and the maths so that new inventions, people could make new inventions,
They could operate the machinery too.
so
Yeah.
the positive about that is that we now have this incredible scientific experiments that can prove that art is so valuable for humans. So this was necessary, that the system was there. But now I think it should change, and I think the whole pandemic and the fact that the arts are so suppressed in a way, maybe should highlight this fact that something has to change, because it's not just for the artists that this has to change, and for children's development and everything. But if we leave society as it is at the moment, and we leave children to just uh, um, use phones and iPads and entertainment on Netflix and computer games, we will not have the artist will not have an audience, because you need somebody to understand the music and understand and have knowledge to be able to appreciate. You cannot appreciate something if you don't know what it's about, or if you haven't heard it, or and I'm afraid that this is why I think, at least if children are in a way a little bit forced to do it in school, like we have to do math, and I was hopeless in math, but I had to do it. But it didn't harm me, I can still buy eggs.
And tell if you're missing one or if you have the right amount. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I think in these times, yeah, in a pandemic or in times of challenge, of struggle, of strife, is where
Yeah,
you have to step back and reevaluate.
exactly. Yeah.
And I think the education system absolutely is a place that is very long overdue, that we evaluate everything that's good about it and everything that we can fibesse and that we can improve, because otherwise we're going, it's like, I don't know, it's stale. The system is out of date and it's not actual, and we're preparing students for a past that's too many generations removed. We're preparing them for their grandparents, if not great grandparents past, not for the future and the grandchildren's future. And that's where we're going to start to run into problems unless we change something now. We're going to see handling climate, handling politics, health, arts, just society living. Unless we start to reevaluate the way that we expose children to these ideas,
Mm.
now we're going to regret that later.
Yeah, I sort of think also what I also found interesting when I talked about this to some artists, that there should be a more, like I said to you before, a connection between the public and the artist, so the public understands these things and understand that. For example, I didn't know that a concert pianist had to study for such a long time, or I didn't know that opera singers study for such a long time and have to do a master's degree and so on. So I've learned all this also by talking to these artists, and think sometimes, and you know, if you hear where they come from or how they started or what inspired them, then it's very interesting to it makes a very interesting connection then, because then you start to get inquisitive about the artist, or you're inquisitive about the art that this person is doing. um, so I was thinking that maybe this I have this idea as if artists just, you know, push through and they do their thing and they overcome their obstacles and things, but they just do it as a normal part of what you're doing, but that you never communicate this to people, you know, that you never communicate your struggles. We see always on the programs, you know, all the competitions that's been won, but we never know, like you said there, the hundreds of auditions that failed, or you know, injuries or things that they had to overcome. um, and I wonder if there's a real life story behind it, if it would also not be something that makes the artist more approachable, you know, that it's not just this on the stage in costume and in this glamorous concert hall, but that it's really also talking about the art and the music, and what uh, you know, the music means to the artist, and then for the person to understand the value of that to the artist.
Yes, I think that if we can find a way to bring artists from the stage into classrooms, into community centers, and then they'll see, that's under the costume, under the wig, under the bright lights, under behind the vorhang. That's a real human being just like me who had to start somewhere, be it singing in a church choir or playing in a Blasenbahn in the Biergarten or whatever, you know, that they start, and that there's a real a journey, a path to be followed that's not always limelight and success and positive reviews. Um, and I think it comes down to exposure and accessibility. If we create this type of culture where the arts are not relevant, are not taught in schools, are seen as something outside, the first thought is it's not for me. If it's not for me, then I'm not going to invest the time learning the language of the arts, because it's all, as you very well know, it's all communication. And co with. If there's nobody to communicate with, then it's all umsonst, and it's all in vain that we've done everything. And so I feel like, yes, we have to bring at a young age just an opera singer who comes in for 20 minutes and says, I'm an opera singer, look what I do. The kids will love it. Every time I've come as a guest to the school and just play something for them, they say, wow, what is that? And then I walk out. It wasn't about the money, it wasn't about the fame or the exposure, but I know that little kids in this room are interested. Whether they become famous composers or conductors doesn't matter. But you spark that interest, and that life is different forever, which is not the case in geometry or math or most schoolwork.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have to bring that together.
And you know, there's a ballet dancer from Spain who told me that he in lockdown did that on Zoom with the. He comes from a very small town in Italy. Oh no, in Spain. And he went on Zoom and he spoke to the children that's in this little ballet school where he used to go to, and they could ask him questions, and he talked about how he became this dancer from that little town and so on. And he said what was amazing was that it was not necessarily just the children who asked the questions, but the adults, the parents who were there, they were also asking questions. So that tells me that it's not just the children that's not clued up. You know, if you take something like ballet, for example, people have not many true ideas of ballet. You know, it's just what they get fed by these films that are not very accurate about ballet dancers. But if you know, and I think it's also like with opera singers, the same thing is if there has to be a story, or there has to be something to, like you say, that that 20 minutes where a child would be touched or would be made inquisitive and maybe think that could be me, or this, I love the sound that her voice makes, and that is what I want to be. So I think, we maybe if we all start thinking about these little projects that can be done, and also from the artists, um, then maybe things like that could be a starting point, and then change how schools then start funding these projects.
Yeah, there has to be an element of giving back,
Yeah,
that artists give back, that it's not just about the performer on the stage. I mean, yes, it's difficult because so much time and energy goes into that. I think we also have to become more politically active as artists because we're reflecting the times. Everything we do, from a picture to cooking to composing, say, is reflecting the zeitgeist, the feeling of this age. And we need to bring that to the forefront of people's awareness, because we're just reflecting the society that's around it, the society that for the most part is oblivious to the fact that there is a zeitgeist at all.
yeah,
And I feel like if we can do that somehow with younger people, and then politicians and rectors and people that are in charge of this, of the institutions, and they'll
yeah.
see how valuable this is, then I think that's a start for growth
But
in a
I
positive
think
way.
it's very interesting what you did as well on Facebook with your cooking, with your recipes, because that's the type of thing that I'm also thinking, that now in this time where we are all on social media and many people on social media, you also get a different insight from an artist, if it was not this time, you would probably not have posted that.
Mm.
But it's a different connection now to you and what you're doing, and it's not always, I think, what people also miss, the misconception from artists also about social media is that it's not necessarily always the thing that they do, the on stage thing that people are interested in. It's something, sometimes this type of thing that you saying now, the cooking, or what is your hobby, or what is it that you like to do as well. So I think that brings that human side to some people always feel this distant side. Yeah.
Yeah, this human side of it, absolutely. Because
Mm,
that's what we're at the end. We may have a mask on, or we may have a smock on, or be in a dark room. But that
yeah.
whole idea is that humans communicating with humans in a way that's special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Raphael, tell me, how did you start in music?
So I wanted to play the cello when I was a kid. My family's not musical. My father works in construction and painting, like painting houses and buildings and stuff.
Mm.
And I wanted to play the cello, but I also wanted to be Batman, and so there wasn't going to be any cello is very expensive too. I saw on television somebody playing the cello with his big hair, and he was really into it, and I thought that looks really really cool. Then watching the cartoons, the soundtracks, the music, I was aware of music, but I didn't know what was going on. Around 7 or 8, I got a little toy organ that was about that big from a lady who lived down the street, who had it, died, and left it to me. And I started just playing out the melodies from church that I heard. And then eventually, curiosity, one thing led to another. I got a keyboard that plugged into my Super Nintendo because I also love video games. And
Yeah.
so next, there was this thing called Miracle Piano. It taught you how to read music on the screen, and if you played a wrong note, then the screen would turn red, as if like playing Super Mario if the guy dies or something. So it was
Mm.
really cool. Eventually, I started writing music down, and I started writing down the melodies from the video games and giving them to girls in my class, saying that I wrote it for them. I didn't know anything about
Oh,
plagiarism
okay.
or
Oh, that is
copyright.
so sweet.
But then, yeah, around 8 or 9, I started to be aware that I could write music down or capture music on the page. And then I started eventually taking piano lessons with a jazz pianist and a rock pianist. But I really wanted to do classical. Eventually, I started studying at Manhattan School of Music, conducting, composition, and piano. Then, well, I moved to Italy when I was 16, lived there by myself, taught English to support myself, studied in the Conservatorio in Torino, came back and did my master's degree in composition, and that have been, like I said, always back and forth between Europe and America. So it was a very alternative way of learning music, and it all had to do with being exposed to it, seeing that one cellist on TV that I can still see. I have no idea what he was playing, but I remember just seeing him scrubbing away like that. And that's all it took was one orchestra on television, which in America is so rare, if ever. At least here in Austria, there's channels that I can turn on and see art and culture. And all it has to do, yeah, you just spark the kids' interest, and then it turned into me bugging my parents, saying, "I want, I want, I want." And eventually, I was a good boy, and I got the keyboard.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just have to spark
But
that interest.
but amazing that you started that way on your Nintendo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
who
amazing.
would have thunk? Yeah,
Yeah,
I think of
yeah,
people like, oh God, not comparing myself, but like Mozart or Bach that come from a long family of musicians always passing down. And then the Super Nintendo, something that again confusing the lines of entertainment and art.
yeah,
Most
yeah.
parents would think, yeah, video game is a waste of time. In fact, if I were to sit down and play a video game on my phone, I feel guilty. Still say, oh,
Mm,
I'm wasting time. But to think that little, what, 8-year old playing his Super Nintendo, that was the beginning of a career path that changed a lot of people's lives, not just mine, but all the people I performed for, all the people that, yeah, I play a song on stage, I play a composition of mine. And
mm,
for me, it's my composition that I want to share. But there's that one person in the audience who I'd never met, never will see again, who needed to hear that song, who needed to hear
yeah,
that piece that day.
yeah.
And I don't know how many people like that I've touched in my life, but it all started with seeing a guy on TV, playing a video game, and then plagiarizing songs and giving them to girls. So I mean, and then
I
from
just want to say there are many girls who who must have been touched by your love songs, all your Nintendo love songs. Yeah,
that started. They were not very impressed at first, but in the teenage years, it started to work.
it started
So
working.
that's
Okay.
uh,
Well, I live on cloud nine, so that impresses me very much. Yeah, about the whole
mm.
story. But no, I'm joking. This is very impressive. No, but and then how did you get to teach opera?
So I guess yeah, it's all everything is eng verbunden, yeah, with love.
Mm,
So I in college I well, at 16 I kind of stopped playing piano and focused on composing and
mm,
always wanted to write. And since I wrote down music on the page, I could read it very easily and sight read at the piano. Opera singers are always the most charismatic, so I had a tendency of dating many opera singers in
mm,
college. So I dated a lot of sopranos, and that meant going to voice lessons and accompanying or coaching them. And since I grew up with a language background, you know, I'd studied French, I spoke Italian
oh,
at home,
okay.
and
Mm,
English, I was able to give advice on pronunciation and diction. As a composer, I was able to see what the composer wrote on the page and what does he mean? How are the words? As somebody who I compose opera, art song, I love words and music because it's a direct
mm,
way of communicating. And so I was able to help singers understand the composer's intent, how the notes and the words come together, and how what they have to do. I'm always a terrible, terrible singer, which is really funny that I make my living teaching opera singers how to be better. So years of working with singers and then eventually conducting opera myself, because conducting and helping musicians make the best music they could make and understand the composer's intention was always a really big part of my art of my artistic expression and my way of working with people to create
yeah.
something. So next thing I know, I'm conducting opera, coaching opera singers. Although I never did degrees in opera, all of the decisions, the little decisions I made along the way, paved the path for me to enter
Mm,
this world of opera. And now, I don't know, 15 years after having my master's degree at the age of 36, I'm now teaching opera in and the Kunstuniversität Graz, which is something that if I had seen my 25-year-old self just out of college in the position that my students are now and said, one day you're going to be working in German, teaching opera singers, I would have been like, the hell out of here. You don't know what
Yeah,
you're talking
yeah.
about. Making noodle, making pasta, okay, I can
Yeah.
see that. I can see it. But working with the opera singers wasn't really on the radar. And since
Amazing.
this
Yeah.
this job found me, and since
Mm,
finding me has enriched my life in a way that I never thought
mm.
possible.
But
Mm.
that's amazing how that's happened, and that you have this understanding of the music, you know, and the understanding of teaching it. I do think that the teachers of the artists are very important, you know, and what you like you say, you know, they come to you and ask for advice, and I've heard that from many, and also how they talk about their teachers as saying, my teacher supported me in this time. So I think you as teachers have such a great you know, job to think that you are helping this person to become the artist that they are supposed to be, but also this moral support and this you know, just encouragement and motivating. Yeah, no, I think it's amazing.
For me,
Must be a
it's a
good.
beautiful thing. It's not for everybody. There's a lot of people. You have to have a certain ability to talk and communicate with people. Empathy is huge. Psychology is such a big part of my job because for an artist, as you know, you're so exposed. You unleash your whole soul and put everything out there uh, in a way that's problem solving because you're trying to figure out how do I make sound with I can't even see my instrument.
Yeah.
Or for me, how do I pick? There's everything is possible. How do I pick these notes and put them together in a way that makes sense to people? And then so there's the artistic side, but then there's another person. There's another side of it to show somebody how they can go beyond what they think their limits are. But it's so delicate. You don't want to push them too hard, but you don't want to be too lackadaisical and not give them the support that they need. That push forward. So it's always a very fine line. Um, and I've always admired people that were great artists who could
Mm,
teach because to be a great artist there's so many great artists but great artists who can teach. I think
mm,
back to people like Leonard Bernstein, when Bernstein would get on the television and talk before millions of people who had some idea of music but teach them why Beethoven's Fifth Symphony was the monumental piece that it was, just him and a piano talking. That's so inspiring to me, and I was very blessed to have really good passionate teachers.
mm.
Only a few bad teachers. I learned a lot from them too. I learned what not to do.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a sacred
Yeah.
responsibility, and
Who
one
was
that
your
I can.
teacher that you think inspired you the most?
Whew, Carl Schachter
Mm,
is an analysis teacher at the Mannes College of Music. Was somebody that I mean, he's one of the most renowned Schenkerian theorists. Published all of the standard books on music theory and counterpoint analysis. And just hearing him talk about music, and there'd be a 2 hour class that would just fly by, and my jaw would just hit. Hearing the way that he would describe the poetry in the music
mm,
and what was going on behind the notes, the consciousness behind the notes, was beautiful. How he could manage poetry and showing the technical workings of it is something that really, how do you say, geprägt or like
mm,
influenced my approach to music. I had teachers. David Loeb was my composition teacher. Was somebody who showed me how much information the brain needs to hold in order to make choices efficiently and to inform yourself about the accomplishment, the same problems that composers before you had to face and learn from them so that I could build on the tradition of the past. Giulio Castagnoli, my teacher in Torino, in Italy, was the first person to start talking about food and music, about saying, this is a little too sweet. It sounds like melone. Hai bisogno di un po' di prosciutto. You had something salty to balance out. And this idea of balancing. So I think, and then also learning, having studied in Paris, in Torino, in Wien. I studied at the Conservatorium in Wien when I was 20 for a few months. And then New York, learning about music in all these different languages. I think all the different teachers, all the different approaches,
Mm.
was really, yeah, really made a big difference on me as an artist, as a teacher, and as a human being who communicates with other human beings.
Amazing. Oh, that's
Mm.
amazing. Yeah. Um, and being a teacher now, and I just wonder this. I don't know, as I say, I don't know much, but as an outsider looking in, is there some sort of idea of that there's a control over artists in a way where you have to do certain things to go certain paths, and that now when this pandemic has sort of given everybody time to rethink what they're doing and why they're doing it, that there will come more individuality from artists. And also, you being a composer, do you think that this experience also gave you some different sort of mindset about composing and to try different things or experiment in a different way?
Hmm. I think for me, the biggest thing has been trying to figure out new ways of getting people together to create my music. Because when there's social distancing, I can't have four people get together in a room and do
Mm.
my music. So it's part of the job now that wasn't there before is problem solving and coming up with this new way of getting my work out there. One thing that I did that was very different from anything I'd ever done before and learned a whole new set of skills was doing a virtual choir. I don't know if have you seen
Oh,
virtual choirs out there?
I have seen, yes, yes.
Uh, so I had written a piece in 2017 called "An American Requiem." It was a requiem for choir and organ and soloists for many singers that was written to commemorate the deaths of students after all so many school shootings that we had in the United States.
Mm.
And I felt like it was America. I saw that there were so many performances of Mozart Requiem, Verdi Requiem, Fauré Requiem, pieces of music that none of these students probably ever heard, or if anything, cared about, and didn't speak Latin and had no direct affiliation with the pieces. But arts organizations were taking advantage of it and saying, let's put the requiems out there as if it had any type of social relevance. Whatever, that's for debate. So I said, well, I want to write a requiem for people that speak English without too much religious tightness of it, to kind of be open and bringing styles of jazz and classical. So I wrote this requiem. After the first 8 months of COVID, there were so many deaths and so many people losing family members and friends. And I thought a requiem needs to be done now. How do we do that when we can't get people together? And so I saw works of other composers where they would have 20, 15, 20 singers record themselves and put them in one screen, and they all sing together, although they all did that from their home.
Yeah.
So I said, I want to do that to my American Requiem. And I asked one friend, I asked two friends, three friends. Next thing you know, I had 70 singers from all over the world that wanted to be a part of this, that are recording themselves at home to the accompaniment that I record. Great. All of a sudden, I have 70 videos, and what the hell do I do with them? I don't know. I'm not a computer engineer. I don't know. So I had to look up to watch so many YouTube tutorials and find out how to put these 70 individual singers into one video. After 200 hours of labor, recovering from Corona, I'd gotten the Corona at the university. I put it together, and on November 2nd, Allerheiligen,
Oh, wow.
I put it out there, and was it perfect? Was it the way of being in the church hearing it? No, but there was one story from a soprano who was older, whose mother passed away, and it was a beautiful story, and it touched me. She said the whole time she was so excited to sing because there was no chance for her to sing. This project gave her something to do and gave her something to sing about. Already that is beautiful for me.
Yeah.
Her mother was very supportive, said, that's great. I love that you're doing this. The mother passed away days before the performance was put online.
Oh, no.
And she couldn't hear it. And the woman was devastated because the whole time she just wanted her mom to hear something that gave her such joy in this difficult time.
Yeah.
what they ended up doing, since they couldn't have any live music at the funeral and there was a very limited viewing, they played, I get,
Oh
I
my
get,
goodness.
they played the Requiem video as the whole music, the whole thing, 20 minutes of it. And it was a moving experience for all the people there. This is in New York. I found out about this afterwards, and she wrote an email just saying thank you, how much it meant. And I had no idea when I wrote this piece in 2017 that it would make any difference to anybody. I was writing for a different group of people. And then on the other side of the world, in a time where I'm saying I could sit on my ass and not do anything. I'm getting paid from the university right now. I don't have to create art. But I said, somebody out there in the world needs to hear what I have to say. How can we get together and do this amidst the difficulties and overcome them? And there's still people every day that click and like and whatever. But just knowing that that one person, her family, it made such a difference to them. My art, my music, my ability, not just me, but my chance to bring people together to speak about what this zeitgeist, what people have on their minds, and to honor the people that fell to this virus, was for me one of the highlights of my life. Forget my career, but just saying me as a human being making a contribution, that made every rejection, and I have a lot of them, every rejection worth all of the stress, effort, doubts, fears I ever had, saying I made a difference. And I think that's what us artists now during this pandemic have to say. Okay, we're not allowed to do this. That has to make us want it even more and figure out how can we get out of our comfort zone, bring people together, and make something of value that will last longer than us. And that,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, this is so touching. And you know what is so interesting for me is that this is a project that you did, like you say, it's not somebody paid you for it, or there's a lot of money involved. This was really a hearts project, and it just ended up touching hearts, and this is not that I'm saying that artists should not be paid, but I'm just saying that in this time, as you know, that we never know what we do, how it touch people's lives,
Exactly.
and this is just
Who was that
another
one
example
person
of
there that
how
needed to?
important, yeah, just another example of how art, how effective that is, and how that touches people, and like you say, bring people together and connect. And this woman would probably never have even connected with you in this way, but now you have this extraordinary connection. This is amazing. Thank you for sharing this story. This is absolutely wonderful. Yeah, I would so love to. Is this on YouTube, this
Yeah, it's on YouTube. I can send you a link. I'll respond to your email with a link to it, and you can
yeah.
see. Yeah,
Could I post our conversation on YouTube?
sure, absolutely.
Yeah, then I will put
Yeah,
this video on the description, the link in the description as well, that we talked about this.
brilliant.
Oh, this is amazing. Thank you so much. But now I just one more question.
Sure. Yeah.
What is your wish for when this is all over?
My wish is that when this is all over, and not if, but when this is all over, because I believe in people too much to give up hope, and I know that we're going to overcome this. My wish is that we will all come out of this having learned something, having learned more the value of our neighbor, of the person that we share this space on earth with, the value of the art that we create, be it a photograph, a virtual choir requiem, or a plate of pasta on a Sunday afternoon, and that more people will see the value of that, and that we can invest and share that value together so that there's more wealth, cultural, spiritual, energy wealth in the world moving forward. That we come out of this not just, oh, thank God we can play again, but that we come out of it really having learned what it means to sacrifice and what it means to overcome, and how much we need to do this with each other. Because if we were to go back to making music in a routine way, or making art in just the same way we'd always done before this, I would say that it would be a shame. It would be a lost opportunity, because during these difficult times is where we really have to reflect. Where do we go? Quo vadis? Where do we go from here? How can we bring ourselves to the next level? And I'm hopeful that we will be thankful for the pandemic. Amidst all the loss and sacrifice, that we will have realized that without this difficult position, we wouldn't have been in the place, in a position to reevaluate and to learn from this. So that's my wish, that we come out stronger.
Yeah, that's really wonderful that you say that that we come unchanged from it. I remember that my daughter she's a ballet dancer, and she had an injury, and this injury took her off dance for a year. And she was young, she was 21 when it happened. And I mean, her whole life fell apart when that happened. But after, and it was, it took about 8 months for the rehab before she could even start dancing again. And actually, what's so interesting is if she refers back to this time, there are so many positive things that came from that, and in herself as well, and change. And I think of this time as, also, because it's also a year, it's been a year, well, it's a bit longer now, but I think this is what will happen, that we will acknowledge that it was difficult, but I think everybody will find something that they feel grateful for, that, that brought change, or that brought a new direction for them. So, but also depending on the mindset of the person. But I think, yeah, maybe for artists, they would be able to see the difference. Yeah.
This could be a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
But it depends on how we approach it and what we decide to do with it. And it takes strength to fight. It takes strength to keep going. It's easy to give up, and to just give up hope. So I think that it's up to us, and we need to be strong as artists. Because this could be the best thing to happen to us if we choose to make it that.
Yeah. Raphael, that was so lovely to talk to you. My goodness, you are so inspiring, and I love the story that you told now about this Requiem. I will definitely now going to listen to it if you send me the link. Sure. And yeah, so and whenever you come to Vienna, please write so we can grab a coffee if the restaurants are open.
Yes,
because I would love to meet you in person. It's so wonderful. Yeah. And yeah, I will definitely, I'm inspired by your cooking. I will try and make my own pasta now.
And it's never too late to start. And your Sundays, every Sunday will be that much better. I highly recommend it. It's very fulfilling. You'll enjoy it.
Okay, no, I'll give it a go.
But please, yes, let's be in touch. I do come to Wien relatively often, and I would love to sit together with you over a coffee and a pastry strudel or something. It would be lovely.
Yes, that would be wonderful. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Okay, and have a lovely afternoon.
You as well. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.